This Friday morning, playoff edition of Sports Addict Live's Pucks Across Borders. Brought to you by the one, the only first round collectibles. Right now, with our promo code Sports Addict, get 10% off whatever sports card you want in the entire first round collectibles store. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off tons and tons of cards. And with the promo code Sports Addict, not only do you get 10% off of regular price items, but sales items as well. Hockey, football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, boxing. They have it all. So go to firstroundcollectibles.com today. Use promo code Sports Addict for 10% off regular priced and sales priced items. That's the number one, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah, I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah. Oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins. Can't relax. Original. I am not the same as these cats.
Good morning and happy Friday. This is Pucks Across Borders on Sports Addict Live. Good to be here. What a night in the NHL last night. That was one of the most entertaining overtime periods that I can remember in a long time. And, usually in overtime, halfway through, the guys get tired, and you can kind of see it by the end. But that was back and forth, highly, highly entertaining. We're going to break it down. Plus, we have a game 2 on deck tonight. Andre's New York Rangers are home for game 2, looking for the split at home against the Florida Panthers. Plus, John's guys, the New Jersey Devils, hired a new coach. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But first, as always, I am Mark Sauter. It is wonderful, wonderful to be here on a beautiful, cloudless, blue-skied Friday morning. Gorgeous in Toronto. And with me at the top of the screen, right next to me, you read his gambling picks on Winners and Winers. You read his work on Give Me Sport. Andre, how are you feeling on a Friday, man?
I mean, weekend's here, right? How's it?
Here.
It's hard to not good on a Friday. I'm doing pretty well. Can't wait to talk about last night. That was an awesome game.
Yeah, it really did have everything, right? Like, for a relatively low scoring game, like, it had everything you could ask for. John, you read, or I butchered that. They read your work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics. John, how are we doing on a Friday, man?
Doing pretty good. We were pretty close to having an all-night session with Edmonton and Dallas last night, but it ended up being a great competitive game one. Probably they wasted no time right out of the gate. One of the better game ones we've had in the playoffs so far, for sure.
Yeah, so let's get into it. First of all, and I'm not going to talk too much because I just love this game. If I talk too much, I'm just going to basically take up all the points and you guys will have nothing left to say. What I will say is the 7th straight game one that the Dallas Stars have lost. They have had 6 playoff rounds, including this year, or last year and this year, 2 conference finals, and they've won 4, they've lost 2, and or that math doesn't add up, but you know what I mean. My point is, in the last 7 rounds for the Dallas Stars, they have lost each game 1. This just seems par for the course. John, we'll start with you, man. What did you see in that game last night?
I kind of forgot Dallas has lost every game one in the playoffs so far. So thank you for bringing that up. What I saw last night is I believe the right team won personally, and I think all 3 of us have been a little hard on Edmonton in the late first round / early second round in particular, but I swear the Oilers have found a groove like the last 3 playoff games they've been in. I know we can talk about Game 7, Vancouver doing too little too late, but I feel like the last 3 games for Edmonton, it feels like we're getting back to Oilers hockey a little bit. Like the first round, I almost don't count that because I think they were just so superior to the Kings that wasn't a real challenge for them. But I think the series early in the series against Vancouver, they exposed the Oilers a little bit, and since then, the Oilers, to their credit, have adjusted, particularly in the last 3 games. I felt like last night in particular, they outplayed Dallas. I'm not gonna say start to finish, but in regulation, I will say I felt like they outplayed them. And I felt like Dallas was lucky to get the game to overtime. The second goal in particular was a very fortunate bounce where Sagan, to his credit, took advantage of it. He had a good night individually. But
Tyler Sagan, by the way, sorry, John, but like he's just one of those players that you forget exists. Like he's been in the league for so long, and then he scores 2 goals, and you're like, oh my goodness, Tyler Sagan still doing it, man. He's played, I can't remember the exact number. It's like 128 playoff games or something like that. It's a pretty crazy career for him. But anyway, sorry, John, go ahead.
No, he's definitely one of the more under the radar star players in the NHL, I would say. At least. But I think 2 things stood out for the Oilers. Number one, the production from the star players. The big 3 on the Oilers, McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, they all had a big night. All 3 of them got a goal. Draisaitl has an unbelievable playoff point streak going on right now. And McDavid, I think he's the story from last night, got redemption. I think everyone I knew watching the hockey game last night in overtime reacted to that Ottinger save. Shout out to him. Ottinger played his heart out. Like Ottinger, that stick save in overtime was incredible.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
But in the end, I think my dad was saying this morning, McDavid would have been kicking himself if Edmonton lost the game because of that. So good for him that in the second overtime, McDavid got redemption with a little tap of the stick for the game-winning goal. And I'll just add one more point about Edmonton. I thought defensively they played a great game. In regulation, they really limited the opportunities Dallas had. And Dallas, they got some more shots than Vancouver did on Edmonton. But I felt like this was similar to like the Rangers in Carolina, where Dallas might have had more total shots. But I didn't really see them get a lot of great opportunities in regulation, at least. Overtime's a different story. But in regulation, I really thought Edmonton played some really tight defense to help protect Skinner, so to speak. So I felt like the defensive effort stood out and the star players stood out for Edmonton.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, the Oilers, I can agree that they deserve to win regulation. That first overtime, that was maybe not all Dallas, but pretty close. Like I think, I mean, the most obvious takeaways specifically for the Oilers, I think it's kind of low-hanging fruit, but it is what it is. Like Stuart Skinner played unreal last night. Like he was terrific. I can't remember who it was for Dallas, but within the first couple minutes, they had a partial breakaway, and Stuart Skinner had to make like 2 really good stops right at the beginning of the hockey game. And right from then, he was locked in. I think if one of those goes in, the game might go a little bit differently, but he saw the puck early, made the save, and he was terrific last night. In overtime, that double minor. Now, I know McDavid was complaining about it, and like Oilers Twitter was all like, oh, he put the stick up in the... That's a penalty. It just is. It just is. Like, we can say what we want. That's a penalty. Double minor. Robertson hits 2 posts during that 4-minute minor, and Skinner was just unbelievable. That whole fourth period, I just thought that Stuart Skinner was the reason why they went to the double overtime. And you talk about that save, man. There's an irony with that save because not only did Ottinger make just a terrific save, Chris Tanev made a terrific defensive play attacking the stick of Connor McDavid. And the irony is that Chris Tanev, in the first 13 games of the Dallas Stars playoffs, Chris Tanev was on the ice for 2 goals. 2. Last night, he was on the ice for 2 goals. So last night, he was on the ice for just as many goals as he was for the entire playoffs so far. And to me, I don't know, Andre, if you would agree with this or not. Like, I agree with you, John. I think that the Oilers played a terrific hockey game. I think they found something defensively in the last couple of games against the Canucks that they carried over to this round. On the penalty kill, like 19 straight penalties they've killed. 19 straight. That was unbelievable. We thought that the Oilers power play against the shaky penalty kill of the Stars would be the problem. It's still special teams, but it's the other way around. But back to my point, Andre, I don't know if you would feel this way or not, but yes, the Oilers played very well. Yes, they deserved the win. Yes, Skinner played great. But guess who scored the goals for the Oilers? Right? Hyman, McDavid, and Draisaitl. And if you want to find a little bit of concern with the Oilers, I think it's right there. That, like, if those 3 guys don't score, so you can't take it away from them. They deserve the win. But depth, once again, like, if those 3 are the only guys scoring, you got a problem throughout 7 games.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that after last night, but yeah, they're pretty much those 3, Bouchard, maybe Nugent Hopkins, but he's getting power play time, so it's helping a lot. They're the only guys really racking up the points for this team. The fortunate thing for them is that they have 2 guys where you can consistently rely on them to get at least 1 point every single night. McDavid and Draisaitl, more often than not, I'd say like 90-95% of the time, they're going to get you at least 1. So at least they have a baseline there, and anything else is a bonus, I guess. But when they're playing as well as they are defensively, they don't need much more than that 3, I guess, from those guys, because so that 5 straight games now, they haven't allowed more than 3 goals.
Unreal.
Held Dallas to 2, Vancouver to 2, 1, 3, and then 2. And this is the first time they started a series and weren't slow defensively or with the goaltending. Against LA and against Vancouver, first few games, it was like, oh boy, if they don't score 5 goals, this is going to be a long series for them. But no, they go into Dallas. They face Andre was playing phenomenally, especially late in the game when they just needed every single stop to, game or keep it tight or whatever. Otter was right there. So, I mean, remember when we were worried about him performing in the playoffs? I think he's put that to rest very quickly.
Yep, big time.
It was just, everyone played well. It's sometimes, the other team is just better. But it's really hard to look at that game and say from either side that somebody did what they weren't or didn't do what they were supposed to do. It seems like everyone gave it their best. Everyone, both teams had a legit shot to win that game. The Oilers just ended up getting the actual goal, the actual break they needed to take it home. But it was just that double minor at the beginning of the first overtime. Like you said, and then the saves by Skinner, just brutal if you're a Dallas fan or if you're a Dallas player, because they had them beat. They had some great looks over those 4 minutes. Just get it to go. And sometimes, sometimes you just don't breaks you need. That's a part of hockey, and kind of how I felt. Not necessarily the same. Dallas played a lot better than the Rangers did. Dallas actually had a chance and deserved to win that game, you would think. But in the same kind of vein, it seems like Dallas and the Rangers, when they had a chance to, tie the game or take the lead or whatever it is, just extra little bit of luck. And now you see both road teams already stole one at home. So
the Skinner redemption arc is very interesting. Henrik Lundqvist brought up a point on a post-game show last night that it arguably might have benefited him to face a few early shots and come out on the other side.
100%.
To settle in, because in the Vancouver series, he was barely facing any shots. Vancouver was just taking advantage of opportunities. So I think that's an important note. I thought it was a good point by him. Also, I owe Skinner an apology because after game 5, I was ready to kill Knoblauch for I was ready to get on Knoblauch for putting Skinner back in over Pickard. But I don't know if he just got the right motivation out of Skinner benching him for those 2 games. But ever since then, Skinner's looked like a different goalie.
I don't think you owe him anything, bro. He was bad. It is what it is.
That series, he was awful.
Yeah, it is what it is. To your point, Andre, game 1 of the Los Angeles series, the score was 7-4. They needed 5 of those 7 goals, right? It's just the way it is, man. And I think that the Oilers, to your points, both of you, I think the Oilers, more than Skinner, not more than, but just as much, the Oilers woke up and said, yo, we're leaving this guy out to dry, man. We need to tighten up here. And the reality is Skinner was not playing well, and he redeemed himself last night 100%. I also think it did look like McDavid was still struggling with something, but that was an incredible game by him. He looked faster. He looked smoother. He looked just better. The last point that I want to make about this game last night, and it's a complete side note, and it doesn't really matter with regards to the game. Going to a hockey game in Dallas looks like a party. There was at one point, was it the overtime or was it the third period where they were playing how they play music during the face-offs or between play or whatever. And they were playing Living on a Prayer. And the puck dropped, song stopped, and you hear this in different games, and they just keep singing whoa, halfway. They're just going on and on and on. And then the Oilers got an icing right away. And instead of playing music, which they usually would, they just left it quiet, and the crowd just carried the song right through to the next face-off. I was watching that game just being yo, Dallas looks like a party. I've never been to Dallas. I've heard it's a terrific city, but that's just a side note. That place looks like a good time to go to a hockey game. And hey, with the basketball, Western Conference, the basketball. I sound like I don't know sports at all. With the basketball playoffs, the NBA Western Conference going through Dallas as well. That's just a wonderful time to be a Dallas sports fan. All right, before we get into the Florida Rangers Game 2 preview, let's talk a little bit about Sheldon Keefe gets hired by the New Jersey Devils. He will be announced to the media on Tuesday, I believe. A couple notes to break down before we hand it over to our Devils insider. The Leafs owed him, I believe it's $2 million a year for the next 2 seasons. The Devils tore that up, gave him a significant pay raise. We don't know exactly how much, at least I haven't seen exactly how much it is. Within an hour of him being fired, the Devils were like, yo, Leafs, we want to talk to your guy. and they got permission. Sheldon Keefe turned it down, I don't know, a couple times, and then the Devils just kept calling, and they got their guy. I really like the move. I'll share a little bit of my thoughts, but John, what are your initial thoughts on the Sheldon Keefe hiring for your New Jersey Devils?
I'm glad I had a day to sit on this, to look into this a little bit more, because like we've talked about this privately, since it's like our two teams kind of connected here with Mark. Mark obviously watches a lot more Leafs hockey than I do. I think from the outside looking in, I never looked at Keefe as like a needle mover, but not someone that would hold a team back either. You know what I mean? Because like I felt like the Leafs were pretty much in the same spots that they were before Keefe came in. So I wasn't really sure when I first heard about it what he could do to the Devils that Ruff wasn't already doing. I should note for the record before I continue, I'm still not happy the Devils fired Ruff, and I thought that was a mistake at the time. Still kind of do, but I think it hurts a little less with Keefe coming in because he's at least someone I can trust to get back to the playoffs, which I think that's the first thing the Devils need to do. They need to get back to the playoffs next year, get at least back to where they were in 2022 before thinking about taking a step forward. Again, I don't want to say I was skeptical when I first heard about it. I think I was more indifferent because I felt like Keefe could be a guy that like at least doesn't make the team worse, could probably have a playoff appearance or two with him. But I think when I first heard about it, I wasn't really sure if Keefe was the guy that could lead the Devils to a Stanley Cup final appearance. You know what I mean? Because I'll say as a Devils fan, I know we missed the playoffs, but that's the goal for me, especially with the young talent that we have. That was the goal for me this year, and it's disappointing, but it is what it is. Anyway, I think having time to sit on this a little bit, Keefe definitely has a more positive reputation than I realized. I do think it's a noteworthy thing that he never missed the playoffs with the Leafs in his entire tenure. And Mark gave me some perspective privately on this, that the Leafs moving off him is probably more of a them thing than a him thing. Like,
yes.
I think your exact words were new voice.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to put that against Keefe either. I don't think it had. Even when he got fired, I felt like he was more of a scapegoat than anything else. As far as the Devils go, Mark kind of talked me into this, and I think I'm buying into this more now that I had a day to sit on it. The Devils have a lot of young talent. They are the youngest team in the NHL, or one of the youngest, sorry. I think with a veteran coach in there, with a veteran coach that's established themselves in the playoffs and working with star players like Austin Matthews and John Tavares, that could be a good thing to inspire the younger Devil stars and get their respect. You know what I mean? So, and the Devils have had to face a lot of adversity this past season. I mean, we don't need to talk about the off the ice stuff. And even on the ice, they weren't playing that well. They were disappointing. They faced a lot of injuries. The Devils have a couple notable veterans, but more importantly, they have a lot of young, promising stars that start with Jack Hughes. So I'm hoping that Keefe can get in his ear the right way. And I think a veteran coach that's had at least a little bit of playoff experience can gain the respect of these younger stars that, quite frankly, need to do it more than once.
Well, it's a new league. It's a new generation. I'm in my mid 30s. I'm not I'm not in my 50s or anything, but like, like it's just different. Like coaches like Lindy Ruff, who are very well respected, but they're old school. Like Peter Laviolette is very good for the Rangers because the Rangers have a perfect blend of veteran leadership and young players, right? And so same thing with Rod Brendamore. Same thing, Rick Bowness, who, by the way, was on the Canadian broadcast last night and will be for the next few nights, did a terrific bang-up job Rick Bonus, Mr. Bonus, if you're listening, would love to grab a beverage with you sometime. You seem like a great dude. My point is that you got a lot of young players, like you said, in that Dallas locker room. And I don't know Jack Hughes personally. Seems a bit entitled, if I'm going to be honest, just watching from afar. And it's just the truth. And I know that, like, dude, Toronto's got Mitch Marner, Matthews, Nylander, all who made massive amounts of money before they won anything. So, like, I'm aware of entitled professional athletes. Sheldon Keefe started with the Leafs 10 years ago in the Toronto Marlies system, was the head coach. I think he took them to 2 Calder Cups, won one of them for sure. I think they went to 2, but they won one. He's worked with young players for a long time in the Toronto organization. And then going to Toronto, like, let's not forget, he took over the job from Mike Babcock. Like, he took over the job from a very, very good hockey coach. Not a great people person, as we later found out, but from a wonderful, wonderful coach. And so, what was his record? I had it written down somewhere. His record's like 212 wins, 90 losses, 50-something overtime losses. Like, he has a terrific regular season record, all with very young, good talent. So for the Devils, I think this is a wonderful move. I think it'll be really good for the young players, like you said. My biggest concern with this has nothing to do with Sheldon Keefe. It's kind of the same thing with Toronto. Like, okay, cool. You got, Craig Berube. You got the Golden Goose. Awesome. Who's in your net, John? Like that, because I would say the majority of the coaching casualties that we saw this season were goaltender related. Like, if we're just being real, like, if you don't have a good goalie, you're not going to be with your team very long, which is stupid. I hate it, but that's just kind of the way it is. So that's the one part about this that I am interested in, is like, did Sheldon Keefe say, would love the opportunity, love the Devils. Who is my goalie? Because if I don't have a good goalie, I'm going to be here for like 5 minutes. So what are we doing? Like, I'd be interested to see if that conversation had. I know you guys have Jake Allen, but like, cool, man. Like,
it's a 1-year thing, I think.
Right. Like, that's not taking you to the promised land. So that's the interesting part that I'm going to see moving forward. But I think it's an awesome move. And I like your team's chances of going on to the playoffs next year. All right, let's move on. Andre, you got any final thoughts on that, man? I think a lot was covered there, but you got any final thoughts?
No, you guys covered it pretty well. Did a pretty good job. The only thing I would say is that if Keefe doesn't want the job, although I do not like the Devils, I would love the opportunity to coach Jack Hughes. So if you want to step over Keefe, just give me a call and I'll gladly step in. This is like fun.
That reminds me of one thing, and I use this analogy with you guys, and it might not be the best analogy, but the thing that's been against Coach Keefe is that, well, you have like Matthews and you have Nylander and Marner, and like, who wouldn't have that record? Like, as if someone can just stand behind a bench and just be awesome because you have good players. Like, I use this stupid analogy that, like, I worked at McDonald's for 10 years. All right. It's a very easy job. Very easy. If I threw you guys into McDonald's in the middle of like a busy time or whatever, your heads would fall off your body. Like, just because you have good players, just because, like, it doesn't mean that you're automatically going to be successful. So like I said, I really like this move for you guys, and we'll see what happens moving forward. All right, moving on. The Florida Panthers look to take a 2-0 series lead against the New York Rangers in New York tonight. I will say this. I'm not saying that I think the Panthers are going to win. I'm just saying the Rangers, this is already kind of a must-win game. I think going down 2-0 against Florida is dangerous. And so we'll see what happens. The New York Rangers, look at this, Andre. You're favored. Amazing. Is that amazing or not amazing? I don't know. Maybe you don't think it's amazing, but the Rangers are favored. They're minus 112. Panthers are minus 108. The over is 5.5 at plus 105. The under is minus 125. Minus 1.5 for the Panthers is wait. So the Rangers are favored, but the puck line goes to the Panthers. All right. Just you got a little bit of love, but not all the way. Minus 1.5 for the Panthers is plus 235. Plus 1.5 for the Rangers is minus 290. Andre, what are you seeing tonight, man?
I don't know what Vegas is on. Favoring Florida in the first game, they win, and we'll give the Rangers a little more love this time.
I don't know.
Weird move. Very weird move. They usually stick to their guns. What I will say is that I think the Rangers are going to win, obviously. I do think this is a must-win, just like you. I know it's possible. I've seen this team come back from plenty of 3-1s in my life. The Stars just went down 2-0 in the first round. Both losses at home, came back and won that series. But it's not a position you want to be in. You don't want to have to win 2 of the games in Florida. You don't want to have to win 4 or 5 against this Panthers team. So, yeah, probably a must win, even though it's technically and truly not. And I think the Rangers are fine. I think their defense in game 1 was very encouraging. Effectively, they only scored 1 goal on the Rangers in that game, or against Igor in that game. You know, they had the empty netter. Lafreniere decided to display.
Yeah, he scored the other one.
Prowess. But, it was a kind of a softie by Kachuk that snuck in, and that was it on a night that was.
Sorry, just popped into my head. I apologize. If you bet the anytime goal for Alex Lafreniere, did that bet hit the other night or no? Does that count? I think it should count.
That should count. I feel like that should count. It's very clearly went off his stick and through the fire hole. It was if he was wearing white, that would have been a great goal.
That would have been a nice tip.
In front of the net. Wasn't wearing the right colors that night. No, that's an excellent question. Vegas isn't that fun though, obviously. So
no,
they wouldn't have paid out for that. Kind of hate those guys. I actually don't see his anytime goal scorer on here right now. Maybe I'm blind. Anyway, if the Rangers defensively do what they did in game 1, if Igor is a bit sharper, because he was kind of shaky in that game. I don't know if we noticed that. Some interesting decisions he made. The 1 goal he let in, he probably could have and should have tracked. So I think a little bit sharper Igor. You know, defense stays the same. They're fine. The key for the Rangers in this game, and I think they'll learn from 1 and moving forward, is that the Panthers truly use all 200 feet. It's not a 180-foot game for them. Just knowing where you're going to go with the puck in the defensive zone when you're behind the net, knowing where the hit's coming from, keeping your head on a swivel a little bit. And I think they got better with that as the game went on. First period was awful. Second period, there were stretches where they looked comfortable playing Florida's game. Third period, especially late when they needed a goal, they seemed to have it figured out. Obviously, part of that's desperation, but as they saw more and more of Florida's pressure and attacking and aggressiveness, it just, the next move became kind of second nature. They kind of slowly adapted to the game. So I think that'll carry over into this one. The hit on Hedl late by, I think it was Mikkola, which kind of fake, former Ranger. But I think that might spark something in the team too. Give them a little juice coming into this one. So I think the Rangers are going to win. And I think it's actually, I said it over last game. I'm flipping on that completely. I don't know what I was thinking. this is going to be an under again too. Under 5.5. Rangers win.
Yo, we missed it last night too. That was an under all day long. Like, as I was watching the game, I was like, yo, this was always going to be an under. Always. We missed that one, in my opinion. But listen, man, I don't have too much to add. I thought you did a wonderful job breaking down that game. I also think the Rangers are going to win. I'll take that money line at minus 112. The one thing I did want to comment on, though, because I just can't add like nothing. I got to say something. And I wanted to touch on that hit that you just mentioned. I thought that was actually a really concerning thing. I don't know if you felt that way. We didn't really talk about it in the game recap. I was a little bit concerned. I know it was the end of the game, but I was a little bit worried about the lack of response in that moment that the Rangers had. There wasn't even a conversation, no little dust up, no scuffle, no scrum. It was just, okay, the game's over, let's go. There was still time on the clock. It wasn't a last minute hit when the buzzer went and then he got ran over. It was still fair game. Even the Panthers being up 3-0, they were like, yo, we're still going to play hard right to the end. This game is over. We're still going to finish our checks. And they did. I was a little bit put back by how little the Rangers responded to that. And I'm really curious. That's really the one storyline for me that I am watching throughout that game, is because we've talked about this over and over again. The Florida Panthers, that's how they play every game, all game, regular season, playoffs, it doesn't matter. They are dragging you into the fight. I don't even know if they're dragging you in. I think you're just in the fight. I think you're just in the fight. Once the puck drops, you're just there. That's how they play. And so I thought that hit warranted some sort of response, especially with the game being over. Listen, like, we're not going away, send a message, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm really interested to see what happens with that moving forward in tonight's game. But I do think that the Rangers will win. I'm taking the under 2. I think more of a concern for the Rangers, more than anything else, I think the Rangers are a very skilled team. I think physically compared to the Panthers, I do think that the Panthers are the more physical team, but I think the Rangers can beat this Panthers team. I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is playoff Bob. Like, Bobrovsky starting in last postseason, and it's translated right into this year, right into the postseason. That guy's playing out of his mind. And so that I am a little bit concerned about. And for that reason, I am going to take the under. I'm right there with you. But give me Rangers money line and give me the under. John, what do you think, man?
Before I go further into this, I want to jump off a point you made about the physicality aspect of game 1. I think going into this series, we all knew Florida was a very physical team that is, like you said, not afraid to get in a fight. But I've been listening to some New York sports radio ever since game 1 happened. And this is like the good thing about the Rangers being this far into the playoffs. They actually talk hockey because they're invested in it. Because I swear, if the Rangers are not in it, hockey doesn't get talked about this time of year. Anyway, what I wanted to bring up from that is a good conversation I heard from certain local radio shows about this that are doing a deep dive on the Rangers. A lot of Rangers fans seem to be very attached to Rempe, which I kind of forgot about him, if I'm being honest, which I can't believe I did with his presence. A lot of Rangers fans seem to be attached to Rempe, especially after the game 1 loss. So I kind of want to get Andre's thoughts on this, because there was a debate going on for these radio shows about should Rempe be on the active roster again to like be the physical guy to hit Florida back, or is he too susceptible to like a penalty for Florida to get a power play edge, or if he's just not talented enough to be on the roster. I don't know what you think about that.
At this stage, I feel like he doesn't offer enough hockey-wise where there are better options where it's Like, you need every goal, you need every stop defensively. You can't risk, even though our PK has been phenomenal, you can't risk going shorthanded. You can't, you know, just spend a shift like laboring in your zone uh, when there are guys who can, in theory, change that. And I think they didn't respond to the Heedle hit because it was a clean hit. It was kind of uncharacteristic, but it was clean. So, you just
It was
write it
clean.
down,
Yeah,
remember it,
sure.
bring it for next game. I don't think they need Rempe to fight anyone on the Panthers. I think Truba, Goodrow, there are guys who will need to. There are guys on the Rangers who are not afraid to throw their body around and, hit somebody. So maybe they won't light up the garden like Rempe will and does every time he's out there, regardless of what happens. But it seems like we don't need to punch them in the mouth, like in the most literal sense. We just need to, match the physicality with what they have. And we can, because it's not like anyone on their team is a hulking, presence that's just going to take out our guys. If that
No,
happens, if like Chuck throws an elbow into Panarin, then yeah, you throw Rempe in. But I don't think that's going to happen.
well, and the Panthers, like, they're just dirty, right? They're physical and they'll hit you, but like Kachuk, Bennett, like, they're not necessarily clean players. I do think that's where my mind went, Andre, was that Rempe, yeah, he's a presence out there. I think the biggest factor that he has, more so than his fighting or whatever, is like the garden goes crazy for him. Like the energy in that building when he's on the ice is just outrageous. The problem is he's only on the ice for like 5 minutes a game and he doesn't score. So like that's what you need. Like, yes, you need physicality. Yes, you need big hits, whatever. You're right about Truba. Not only will he throw his body around, he will literally throw his body. Like he'll leave the ice and go head first into the boards to make a play. But you need goal scoring as well. Like if you lost the game 5-4 and you wanted to throw Rempe out there to, prove a point, then I'm there. But you got shut out last game. You know what I mean? That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys touched on this because I did feel like I got the sense from the local radio audience that they had too much of an emotional attachment to Rempe.
They love him.
And quite honestly, I think Andre is one of the more rational Rangers fans I could talk to without, he'll be like, it's not a knock on other Rangers fans. I just think Andre knows his team inside and out to know if Rempe's not there, it's for the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just want to hear Kevin Weeks call him the Rempire State Building. That's like my favorite nickname I've ever in my life. It's phenomenal.
As far as tonight's game goes, I agree. They need to score. It's plain and simple. So I think that adds emphasis to the Rempe point you both made, that the Rangers need more, how do I say this, pure hockey players out there to light up the lamp a little bit. I do think an encouraging sign that I think some of the local radio hosts also made a point on this, but thinking about it more, I felt similarly. The Rangers, I thought, got really outplayed in game one, but yet, for 55 minutes of that game, it was 1-0, and the Rangers got a lot of really good opportunities to tie that game, particularly in the third period with like 7 or 8 minutes to go. They had 2 opportunities, really good ones, to tie the game. They just didn't capitalize it. Unfortunately, they made a comedy of errors to allow the second goal that really put things over the top, and then, of course, the empty netter. My point being, I thought that was a pretty poor game for the Rangers' perspective. And Andre's right about Igor, too. Like, that wasn't a great game from him, and I think that was a little bit unlike him. But yet the Rangers were right in that game. So I would say, yes, it wasn't a great – it was not what you're looking for if you're a Rangers fan. But I think the positive side of this I'm trying to get at is that the Rangers were right there despite really getting outplayed tremendously from start to finish. which makes me encouraged about their chances of winning game 2, because I don't think they'll have a game like that again, especially in the Garden. And I think some people think Florida is a much better team than Carolina, and this is a big step up for the Rangers. I disagree. I really do. I think their goaltender is a lot better. I think that's a big step up. But I think the overall skaters, I thought Carolina gave the Rangers everything they had and threw the kitchen sink at them. And the Rangers came out on the other side. The Rangers need to find a way to get through Bobrovsky because, like Mark said, he's playing out of his mind right now. I think that's the real test for the Rangers. But I think they can come out on the other side of this. And I expect Igor to step up in game 2 because this is going to be like his true head-to-head matchup of the playoffs. And he needs to be as sharp as he was in the early games of the playoffs this year for him. So I think I like two things in this game. One, I like the Rangers to win. And two, I think this is kind of a interesting goalie prop I have. I like the under 25.5 saves for Bobrovsky because I don't think the Rangers are getting shut out again. And he only had to make 24 saves in a shutout. So I expect the Rangers to put up a few goals this time. They're not exactly known for having a ton of shots on goal. So that under prop for Bobrovsky looks very attractive.
The one point that I'll make, John, is what the Panthers do have way more of, in my opinion, than the Hurricanes do. And this is from a guy who watches the game while shoveling back a bag of chips sitting on my couch. Like I'm not in the locker room. I just think watching the product on the ice, what the Panthers match the Rangers in and what the Rangers have more in that series against Carolina than the Hurricanes did. And this is going to sound like a raw, like 12-year-old, like, you know, baseball game coach speech, but they got heart, man. Like the Rangers, the passion that the Rangers had to pull out that game 6, like that was just family coming together and getting a job done. And I know that sounds super cheesy, but that's what it looked like watching the game. And yes, the Carolina Hurricanes, very skilled team, but they just didn't have that same determination where the Panthers, like, it comes across sometimes with a blindside punch to the head, but they have this like will to win that is unmatched by few teams in the league. You know what I mean? And I think that goes a long way in the playoffs. All right, let's move on. Best bets brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Right now with our promo code Sports Addict, get 10% off every sports card in the First Round Collectibles store. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off tons and tons of select cards. With our promo code Sports Addict, not only do you get 10% off of regular priced items, but sales items as well. That's the number one, STRoundCollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans. Andre, what is your best bet?
You know, I don't think I've done this all postseason, and it's probably in bad taste, but, you know, we ball, and Messier was a Ranger. He called his shot, so I'm going to call my shot. Rangers for winning tonight. Give me that minus 112.
Love it. Absolutely love it. John, what about you?
Andre calling the shot early. I like where this is heading already. All right, so my pick is gonna kind of back Andre's selection a bit. I'm gonna go Bobrovsky under 25.5 saves for two reasons. One, I expect the Rangers to put up a few goals tonight to bounce back from game 1. Number two, Bobrovsky only had 24 saves when they shut out the Rangers. The Rangers don't need a ton of shots on goal to win games. I think they proved that in the Carolina series. So I really like the chances of that prop hitting. Give me under 25.5 saves for Bobrovsky.
Ooh, okay. So I think the obvious one is the under 5.5. I think that's the obvious, but I'm not going to go there. I really, just for poetic, dramatic effect. I really wanted to take Lafreniere goal scorer just to see, but he's not on the board, as you mentioned, Andre. He's not on the board right now. But I'm still going to go with a goal scorer. I'm going to go Vincent Trocheck. I think he has been, if not their best player in the postseason, he's one of them. Obviously, Chris Kreider has had his moments. Panarin has been really good or invisible. There's kind of no middle with Panarin, it looks like, over this playoff round or playoff run. Give me some Vincent Trocheck, man. I think this guy's going to leave his mark on this game. I think he's going to score. I will say, as a little notable mention, I have no other reason other than I'm a degenerate and the odds are beautiful. But Roslovic, however you pronounce his name, he's plus 450. I kind of like someone random to score tonight. So that guy and Jacob Trouba, only 10 shots in the whole postseason. Weirder things have happened. He's plus 1,000. So I don't know. I like Vincent Trocheck. That's my pick, plus 200. But I'm looking at the board for some randoms to score tonight, and I kind of like it. I don't know. We'll see. Has Trouba even gotten a goal? He's gotten one. So it's been done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was short-handed. Yeah. So, but yeah. So Vincent Trocheck, plus 130.
Mark, if you're looking for a real random, someone who almost never scores, but feels like he's very quietly been inching towards one lately, Ryan Lindgren.
Ooh.
People love to Lindgren. Odds are insane. I haven't looked at him.
Plus 1,600.
He's had heightened offensive presence, I'll say, lately. He almost scored a few times against Carolina. It was at Game 6, so just throw that out there. But our best bets for today, yet again, do not include block shots. I'm very disappointed in us. But we have the Rangers money line at minus 112. We have Bobrovsky under 25.5 saves at minus 125. We have Vinny Trocheck, anytime goal scorer, at plus 200, and parlay tickets plus 625.
Absolutely love it. Now listen, John, I just want to let you know this, all right? As your friend, as your brother, I just want to let you know, if this bet does not hit tonight and the Rangers somehow put up like 35 shots on net, I just want to let you know that it's the right bet. It's a good bet. The Rangers don't put up a lot of shots. They get outshot every single night. It's the right bet. So if it doesn't hit, just know. All right, don't beat yourself up. I know how you get sometimes, all right? It's not your fault. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. As always, whether you're watching live or throughout the day, we appreciate you. Shout out to First Round Collectibles, promo code SportsAddict for 10% off every card in the store, including sales items. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com today. Who else are we shouting out? Shout out to Andre. Shout out to John. Great job today, guys, as always. And as always, a shameless plug, TotalApexSports.com for my recap on the Oilers game last night. Have a great day. We'll see you guys tomorrow.